Welcome to the Tap In Podcast. We have a very special guest, my guy, my mentor, Derrell Slaughter, here in the house. Let's give him a round of applause, everybody. You know what I'm saying? Man, we got him in the stew. So, I got a couple questions for him. But first, I'm going to let him introduce himself, tell everybody what he does now. Derrell, man, thank you for coming, by the way.
Oh, it's an honor. Thanks for having me. Derrell Slaughter, former Ingham County Commissioner, work for environmental advocacy organization, the Natural Resources Defense Council, fighting for environmental issues, climate change, environmental justice issues there. So that's what I do in my day job. But overall, just a community advocate, but just happy to be here. So,
well, again, thank you.
Yep.
So right now, we're going to go to these questions that I have for Derrell. So my first question is, Derrell, can you share some of your highlights as Ingham County Commissioner?
Yeah.
What accomplishments, or initiatives are you particularly proud of?
Sure. Yes, I had the pleasure, but also I served during the pandemic, during the height of the pandemic, and so I think overall just like providing leadership, helping to steer the county, our health department during all those really complicated times when people were trying to figure out about vaccines and what to do with masks there. And so I think just the fact that I had the pleasure of serving during that time, I think is one of this something I'll always be proud of and happy that I was been part of the leadership team to help us steer our county through those really tough times. I think more specifically in terms of accomplishments, I mean, it was fortunate to be part of a bunch of initiatives, but I think particularly really proud of helping to lead the county's response in terms of a lot of the racial injustice that was happening. This was during the time when George Floyd was just murdered and Breonna Taylor was just murdered, and our county did, what we did was, because we knew it was really important to us, to issue a resolution to declare racism as a public health crisis. I know a lot of folks would probably think that was a symbolic step. In some ways it was, but for, all 14 commissioners at the time, both Democrats and Republicans, to come around and to vote on this resolution and pass it, that basically that talked about how the role of government has played some significant role in systemic racism and that we have a responsibility to try to address it going forward. And so to have all my colleagues vote on that was really special. And we did follow-up work, too, to make that real. So now we weren't just passing symbolic resolution, established the Ingham County Racial Equity Task Force, which I know is still in existence today. Great work. A lot more work to happen. So happy to establish that. But help really steer, some of the conversations that with that group help figure out how can we steer more dollars in the Black community during that time. So I think those are some of the really proud moments. Did a lot on criminal justice reform, served as the chair of our Law and Courts Committee, helping to try to push our county to be more progressive in terms of criminal justice issues. Trying to figure out alternative ways to address crime or gun violence in our community too. Establishing some efforts there, but yeah, those are probably some of the highlights there. But was part of several really significant things. But those are things that come to mind. So.
Okay. Another question, man.
Sure.
You talked about criminal justice, serving in the pandemic, but specifically because we worked together on your very first campaign.
Yeah.
I want to go back a little bit and ask you, what was it like when you first decided to run for county commissioner?
Scary. I had been working on campaigns for many years, working with different folks. Folks who I thought were really talented and ended up being really good in those positions. And so I felt I was more comfortable being behind the scenes, right? Supporting those people that I thought, again, were really talented, good people there. But I think it was a combination of, it helps when the outgoing person who, a friend of ours, current state senator, Sarah Anthony, who was the commissioner then, thought really highly of me to kind of succeed her in that role, and combination of that and just talking with family and friends, because it was, as you worked on it, it was a lot of hard work and a lot of talking to folks, knocking a lot of doors, raising money. And so So it was scary at first, but then once we got into it and just receiving all the love and the confidence and just going out there and it's hearing from folks, it became less scary and like it was a really good experience. And I mean, it'd be one that I always remember and really proud of. So,
okay. What was your like favorite time during the campaign? Your first campaign, like a great memory back then.
Yeah, what was my favorite time? Honestly, it was those moments. So it was like when we weren't knocking doors and we weren't like I wasn't calling raising money, but it was a time when we got a chance to just hang around and kick it. And so, some of that involved just eating food. Sometimes we have a few drinks here and there.
Yeah.
But like the time like to really connect like with you, and we had some really cool people that came along the way, volunteers that also would partake and hang out with us too. And so I think this the time of like the camaraderie, during those really stressful moments and, you don't know if what you're doing exactly is going to like lead to success.
Mm-hmm.
Those things are out of your control, but again, the moments of like when we're able to just kind of kick it and kind of just talk with each other and those are the moments I always remember.
When you were on the campaign trail,
Yep.
and you were knocking doors and doing all that extra stuff, not extra stuff, but necessary things in order to win, I feel like people that haven't ran for office don't understand that, like, when you really cared, that passion, that grind that you feel when you like, I got to win this.
Yeah.
What gave you that push? Because you're not, we didn't really talk about it on the camera, but they don't know that you're from Detroit. I mean, I know that, but like, you're not from Lansing.
Let me clarify. Born in Detroit, but raised in the outskirts, Farmington Hills. But both families from Detroit, because you got to make that distinction. They'll call you out on it. So,
they will.
You got to do that. I got to keep it 100 on that. So,
either way, not from Lansing, right? So, what gave you that passion to want to, cross that finish line?
Yeah, Miles. Not originally from the Lansing community. Did not grow up here. I came here to go to school. First went to Lansing Community College and went to Michigan State.
Where you graduated high school and went straight to LCC?
Not straight. I actually spent a couple of years. I went to Wayne State for a couple of years.
Okay.
But then, I would that school at the time was more of a commuter school. So I would drive from like Farmington Hills and just drive down to like the Wayne State downtown Detroit for the most part.
Yeah.
And like I was getting a good education, but like the campus experience wasn't like that. So, but I had friends who were at Michigan State, who were like, and I would go up there and visit them. I'm like, man, they having a great time. They having a great time. So can I combine my, wanting to get my degree, but also want to get that campus experience, and I'm also into politics, and my eventual degree was public policy, political science.
Okay,
I'm close to the Capitol by going up there. So for me, it was like a win-win-win to go up there. So. But prior to making a decision, I had never gone to Lansing. I never I didn't have any family or friends who, other than the friends that went up there, didn't have anybody up there. But so kind of being up there to go to school and essentially being by myself because family members didn't like the same thing. They didn't come to Lansing. I kind of made my own tribe, kind of made my own family in Lansing. And one of the things that have kept me in Lansing is just how welcoming and how giving the people have been, in terms of like when I had some different, like maybe some financial situations or maybe a few health scares, it was like the people, the folks that I made friends with in Lansing that like made me love this town. And so I think combined with that made me want to like give back, want to serve. How can we move our, this community back in, a variety of ways, particularly, looking at how can we make it better for Black folks in particular. But across the board, how can we like make our region like more economically, competitive, all those things that we want to like so people can thrive there. So having done like a lot of work before running for office and done a lot of community work in different campaigns and working with different organizations, that gave me like the passion to like run for office, like take my advocacy to the next level because I have come to love this region and wanted to serve it and do right by it. So,
wow. So basically what you're saying is you were at Wayne State.
Yep.
You were going for public policy.
Yep.
It was like all my friends at Michigan State, let me go to LCC, then go to Michigan State.
Yep. And
you developed and grew to love this region.
I did.
And ended up running for the South Side.
Yep.
What's unique about the South Side is A lot of people live over there. Come to learn it's a food desert, a health desert. Back when you ran, was that the same pretty much?
That was the same. I would like to think that we, some of those problems are still in existence, but like help move the ball forward.
Right.
So,
And no knock to you at all, because that is a institutional issue. But in the same vein, you doing that for that community means a lot. So, as a Southside resident, as somebody that grew up in Lansing, that's from that community, I personally want to say thank you. Because you didn't have to do that, right? You could have stayed in Farmington Hills. You could have stayed at Michigan State, you know?
I could have, as you know, and people know, Michigan State can be its own bubble, right? I mean, there's people who never leave campus or just stay in East Lansing and never come to Lansing. But, no, it was my pleasure. I mean, living in Lansing, and you come to understand the different parts of the city, and this kind of, you just generally see like where the resource distribution is, in the city. And just, also just understanding that those things that you talked about, being Southside being a food desert, or not having, not having all the access to all the really cool things that, that are in other parts of the city. And so, I wanted to like represent an area that, where I feel like I could do a lot of good there and help really support and lead there. So, no, it was a no-brainer, but it was an honor. So.
How important was mentorship and guidance for you as you ran for office and then as you continued to stay in office?
Yeah, I think it was really important. I'd never, again, personally run for office. I've, served on a few boards here and there, but I don't think, as you know, nothing can ever fully prepare you until you're actually in the seat. I could call you and let you know as much. Right. Think about this or read up on this, but there's nothing like being in that seat. However, though, having some of those mentors, having some of those folks who maybe have gone through it, and I mentioned her earlier, our close friend, Sarah Anthony, I mean, she was somebody I called with getting advice and ideas about things, constantly. There's a few other folks that I would, maybe not necessarily in the political space, but like they're, people that, will give me their good opinion, and I trust their sound judgment on things. And crucial, especially again in the height of the pandemic, which the majority of my service on the commission, was during the pandemic. I needed that so much, and so I would not have been able to make it through because there was some really tough decisions and calls we had, and getting emails, and, people were, again, had all types of feelings about, again, vaccines and mask mandates and, everything going around racial justice. It was a lot going on. But having some good, I'll mention one like Wayne Lynn, for example, who's involved in Turning Point of Lansing, or Harold Pope with NAACP. Those are two, men I would look to for support in there. So those are just a few examples. But mentorship is so important.
Well, shout out to the great mentors real quick, man. Shout out to the great mentors. So you talked about, the good, what you thought about it. Yeah. I kind of want to go into what was a very tough time for you personally while you were in office. And it doesn't have to be, nothing crazy, but like, what do you feel like is more so, not even for you personally, but what do you feel like is tough to be a public official? For those that don't know, right? Everybody thinks, oh, okay, they're skeezers, they make all this money, right? Like
some are.
Some of them are. Yeah. Respectfully. But from your standpoint of being a local elected official, what was that like for you?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that the tough part of when you're in office, you run on like certain platform, for example, I ran on like progressive criminal justice reform, expanding opportunities for health care, those sorts of things there. So running for office and then getting in the office and trying to stay true to those platform items while running up against the reality of like just the nature of, like, for example, county government, they may not, those goals that you ran on may not always align or may not always allow you to actually always make progress on those
Right.
things, but it's you try to. That's why you stay active and stay engaged and continue to serve your constituents. So when you do find those moments to actually expand on those things, you take advantage. For example, actually right before the pandemic happened, we we were pushing for this healthcare millage that expanded money, not for living, just for like basic healthcare, so checkups, those
Right.
sorts of things, but also for the first time looking at mental health.
Shout out to Ingham County Health Department, by the way.
Absolutely, save. We got the best, one of the best health departments in the entire state, though. But that was like an opportunity where we were trying to raise additional money. I was, proud to be part of those conversations and to like really push for, along with my colleagues, to expand for more funding through the millage for more healthcare access. And again, to add mental health in there because that was something that did not exist. But those are tension points because you're not always going to have those opportunities to really to expand on those
Right.
those platform items. But you just again, that's why staying engaged and staying active and constantly looking for opportunities to do that. So I think that's really tough because you could probably find yourself in moments where like, man, I ran to do these things, but I'm like busy working on HR issues. For example, I'm dealing with interpersonal issues with the county, and
Right. Yeah.
didn't think that was gonna be something I was gonna do. Or like for example, dealing with animal control issues. That was not something I thought I would ever have to deal with.
Right.
But recognizing that is really important to constituents, you learn to like have appreciation for it, and we have a great Ingham County. Guys have a great Ingham County animal control, but
Yeah.
so I think that's probably the struggle is trying to figure out how can you still work on those priorities, but also you gotta like there's a whole host of other issues that may not be your top priorities, but they're important to others too. So
Right. What's something that you would give to an inspiring entrepreneur? Not entrepreneur.
I'm not
but,
one of those.
Right.
That's you.
Right.
That's you.
That is me. But an aspiring
Yeah.
community member, an aspiring advocate, an aspiring politician. What would you give them to let them know that they can start? Somebody that looks like you, in particular.
Yeah. That's another great question. I think if you're gonna think about or decide to run, like try to as much as you can know why you're running. And I don't mean
That's
like
important.
very important because as we know, there's a ton of folks that will run for office just for all sorts of reasons, straight up
Right.
ego. Just to say I accomplish this, or in some ways, money. I know that's not the case with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
But like no, and I don't mean again, not even like specific things. Sometimes you can go into like running and like again get into that office and think that you can do this, but you can't actually like make that type of change. But the
Right.
values, the principles of why you're running, like for example, like justice, equality, like those are really like those are values and principles I hold on very tightly. And again, I use that as like a guiding principle for how I make decisions. And in the very rare moments where maybe I felt like I had to kind of move away from that, like it was always kind of like my baseline, so I could always come back to that. If you don't have that, you will get lost in the sauce.
You get lost.
You will get sold on anything, and you will end up doing stuff that you never had any intention of doing, and you might find yourself like, why am I here? And just you might not feel fully satisfied with your work. So understand why you want to do it, your principles. And then after that, like
Stand on business is what he said.
The translation. Stand on business. But then do your research. As much as you can understand the actual what the body can actually do in terms of the issue or principle that you're trying to advance too.
Right.
That takes a combination of literally Googling, but also going to actually have conversation or talk with the people that are involved. It could be current electeds, even former electeds, or people involved in different boards, that pertain to what you're focusing on. So I think those are probably the fundamental things. I think if you do those things, you can't go too wrong. It doesn't guarantee success. There's a whole other, you got to raise money, knock doors and all that, but that's a good starting point, and you can be solid if you at least lead with those. So.
Well, y'all heard it from the man himself. He's very successful, won 2 terms back to back. And my mentor, so I won as well, so he know what he's talking about. Last question, man. Is there anything else that you want to leave the audience? Anything else that you want to say?
Yeah, I think. Well, first, thanks for having me on here. It's 2023. I think there's a lot of like reimagining still happening in terms of how government works, how the types of policies that I think we once held like, oh, this is the policy that you always use to address education. I think
Right.
this is a time where people are starting to reimagine and revisit like some of these things that we've held on for so long. And so I guess encourage people to like just be open to new ideas and think about innovative ways to like get their issues solved. Again, this is an exciting time. Stressful time, but also exciting in terms of like what's possible right now. But I think the main point I'm making is that nobody knows the exact answer on how to solve things like criminal justice reform, and there's going to be a whole host of solutions to doing it. But people should jump in there and be part of the process and think about it. So
should be engaged.
Exactly.
Be engaged.
Yep.
It's important, and not just to vote. Be engaged.
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you, Derrell.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate it. We'll see y'all next time. This is the Top End Podcast with your host, Miles Johnson. It's your boy. See you next time.